Hello and welcome. In this robot framework tutorial, we will learn about the keywords that are available for working with web elements in any Selenium robot framework automation. So the Selenium library for the robot framework provides a lot of keywords that you can utilize to work with the web elements on any web page when you're doing the automation, the web automation. So we'll go through these keywords one by one, and then I'll walk you through the code in which I have used all of these keywords that I'll be explaining and how to use them in your automation. Okay, so the first keyword that I want to cover is the get element attribute, right? So what exactly this keyword does is it returns the value of the attribute from the element locator. So now what does this means? So for example, you have a button on a web page, right? So let me open google.com and show you what exactly this means. So here, if I inspect this particular Google search page, right? Now, these are all attributes. So this has the attribute class, value, like the name, type, etc. So what this get element attribute does is if you specify, say, I want the attribute value or I want the attribute type with this keyword, then it will return the value of that particular attribute. So whatever value this particular name has, this name is the attribute and its value is btnk, it will return that particular value for that particular attribute. So that's what this get element attribute does basically. Now get element count is basically it returns the number of elements that are matching to that particular locator. So for example, on a page you have multiple web elements that match to that particular locator that you are specifying. It will return all those web elements that match to that particular or it will return the count of all those web elements. So for example, there are 5 elements which match that particular locator, then it will return the value, the number as 5. Then get element size is basically it returns the size of that particular locator. Say for example, you are verifying a particular button size on a page, then it will return the size of that particular button on the page in terms of width and height. The next keyword is get web element. So what get web element will do is it will return the first web element that is matching the locator that you provide. The next one is get web elements. Now get web elements will return a list of web element object. So for example, you have given a locator, and that particular locator there are 5 web elements that are matching on that particular page. Then it will return the list of those 5 web element objects, and you can utilize or you can iterate that list and perform certain operation on those different 5 web elements. So it returns the web element objects. If you want the count, you have to use the get element count on that particular page. If you want to perform certain operation, then you can use the get web elements to get the list of web element objects, and you can perform the operation on those web elements. Then capture element screenshot is basically it captures the screenshot of that particular web element that you for the locator that you provide. Then assign ID to element. It basically assigns a temporary ID to the element. Okay, so whatever locator you provide, the web element locator you provide with this keyword, it will assign the ID, temporary ID for that particular locator that you can utilize further. Then you have the clear element text. So it's pretty self-explanatory that it will clear the value of the text input element identified by the locator. So if there is a text field wherein there is some value already or the text already in that particular text, you want to clear it first and then start typing in, then this clear element text will clear the values first, clear the text box and then start type. Then double click element will basically simple double click, it emulates the double click for the mouse. Then cover element is basically utilized to cover the element. So what it will do is it will use the blue div to cover the element that you specify, or the web element, or the locator that you specify. So there will be a blue div that will cover that particular web element that is identified by the locator you provide. And then click element at coordinates will basically click the element locator at particular coordinate, or the offset x and y coordinates that you provide. So it will position the cursor first at the center of that particular web element, and then it will calculate the x offset and y offset from the center, and then click on that particular button or element that is specified. Okay, so this is just a basic of the web element. There are a couple of more, so I have categorized these into two sheets. So these are more of a verification that you might be doing for the web elements, or the web elements in the automation. So this is the second sheet, wherein you have the keyword element attribute value should be. So these are very self-explanatory. So this is basically for the verification. So you want to verify that the attribute value should be, then you use this particular keyword. Or the element should be disabled. If you want to verify that the element on the web page should be disabled, then you use the keyword element should be disabled and provide the locator. Then element should be visible, element should not be visible. These are also some of the verification keywords that you can use. Element should contain, should not contain. Basically, if you want to verify that element should contain particular text or should not contain text, then you can use these two keywords here. Then element text should be and element text should not be is basically to verify that the element locator contains the exact text. Okay, and then element text should not be, basically it verifies that the text, the element locator doesn't contain the exact text. Okay, so the difference between the element should contain and element text is basically that with the contain, it will verify whether that text, any of the text, if for example you just took the partial text. Okay, so for example Google search, so if you use element should contain as Google search, it will still pass. Or if you say element should contain Google, it will find that yes, it contains Google there, then it will pass. But if you say element text should be, then it will do the exact match of that particular text. Say Google search, then if you pass only Google text, it will fail because it is looking for the exact text match, which should be Google search. Then element should be enabled and element should be focused are another two keywords which are very helpful to verify that the element is enabled or it is focused or not. So enabled is basically on the web page, the element should be enabled before you can start performing any operation on that particular element. So for example, you have a text box, but it is not enabled, then you can't type in anything there, right? So this is verification point to verify whether the element is enabled before you start typing in any value in the text box. Or if there is a submit button, then you are verifying whether the submit button is enabled before you perform the click operation. So these keywords are really helpful. Then the second one is the element should be focused is something, say text box, you want to type something in a text box, but the text box is not focused, the focus is somewhere else, then you won't be able to type anything there. So you verify that the focus is on that particular text box with this keyword element should be focused, and then you start your next steps of typing. So these are some of the keywords that you will be very frequently using in the automation using robot framework. Now I'll demo all these keywords in the file. So I have created the robot file with all these keywords. So what I'm doing is here I'm opening a browser. So I have used the open browser keyword. I'm just opening google.com just to explain you all the details or all these keywords here. And the first keyword is basically get element attribute, right? So what I'm doing is I'm storing it in the variable here. So get element attribute is the keyword, and then two spaces here. You have to make sure there are two spaces. Then the locator. So this is the XPath or the web element locator. So you can use either XPath, CSS selector, or name, ID, whatever is available for that particular attribute. And then what attribute value you are looking for. So for example, I want the value for the class attribute of this web element. I can specify class here. If I want the value of the name, I just change it to the name. Okay, so I'll just leave it to class. And then get element count is another web element, right? Two spaces and the locator, which is the XPath. So I want the count of the web element that match this XPath. Now the get element size will give you the size, pretty self-explanatory, and it will store it into the two variables, width and height. Okay, so it will find the size of the web element with this particular XPath. This is the locator of the web element for which I am looking for the size. So if I just open google.com here, right, so I'm looking for the size for this Google search button here, right? So how I have found these XPaths, I simply just right clicked and inspect, and in Chrome browser, and then there is highlighted code here. You just right click on it and copy XPath. Okay, so this is the default functionality in the Chrome browser that is available that you can use to quickly practice. But if you are looking for the detailed explanation of the XPath and CSS selector, I have created a complete tutorial series separately for finding the complex XPath and dynamic XPath and CSS selector. You can follow that on the channel as well. So I've just copied it and then going back here. So this is the XPath that I have used to get the element size. Similarly, get web element, it will get the first web element, then get web element, it will store it in the list variable. I have stored in the list variable that are matching with this particular locator. Then capture screenshot, element screenshot will capture the screenshot for that particular web element. Then assign ID is basically whatever the locator you are specifying. So assign ID to element, two spaces, locator, and then two spaces. You can specify whatever ID you want to specify, and then later you can use this ID in your code to verify. So basically page should contain element. So I have specified temporary ID for this web element, and now I can use this ID directly. Okay, with this page should contain element as an ID here, right? So simply two spaces and then this ID, right? And then element should be focused and visible. So I'm just verifying that this element is focused and visible before I am typing in the text in this particular web element. So this is the Google search box here. So I'm just verifying that this box is focused as soon as Google is open. So if I just refresh this page, you can see that you can see the blinking cursor here. So that means it's focused and it is enabled. So I'm just verifying that in the code that it is focused first and then it is visible, and then I'm typing in the text, right? So in this particular locator, I'm typing a text RCV Academy, and then I'm clearing this element text. So I'm typing in and then I'm clearing the element text. So after that, I'm covering the element. So I'm covering this I'm feeling lucky button. So you'll see the blue cover or the blue div covering this particular web element when we run this code. Similarly, then next we are verifying that the value, so element attribute value should be, so for example, this particular element, the value should be Google search, and this element should be enabled or should be visible. These are all the keywords which are very self-explanatory. There is nothing complex about this. So for example, element should contain, so this is the web element and it should contain how search. So this how search works is the link that I'm verifying on this particular page, right? So should contain and should not contain Google search, right? So it doesn't contain Google search. That's what I'm verifying. Element text should be how search works, right? So that's the difference between should contain and should not contain. So element text should be will verify the whole text as is. It should match the whole text. It should not be, so if I just say partial how search, then this will fail, right? So it will basically, if I say element text should be how search, it will fail. It will only pass if the text that I'm verifying matches exactly with the text that is available here. So how search works, right? So this is the exact text that it is verifying. But if I use element should contain, then even with how search, which is the partial text of this whole text here, it will still pass. So that's the difference between the element should contain and element text should be. Element text should be matches the exact text of the element. Element should contain matches the partial text as well. Now double click element, it will do the double click or double click similar to mouse double click on the particular web element, whatever locator you provide here. Then click element at coordinates is another keyword which will identify the web element, and then it will click at the particular coordinates for that particular web element. So it will go to the center of the web element, and then from there it will calculate x and y coordinates. So it will go 15 right and 10 in the y-axis, and then click on that particular web element. And then element should be disabled. I couldn't find any disabled element here, so I'm just commented that out. But this keyword is verifying that particular element on the page should be disabled. So you can specify whatever locator you're looking for, whatever locator, web element locator you want to verify that it is disabled or not, and then provide that particular locator, and this keyword will verify that particular web element is disabled. So this is a brief introduction about the web element, the keywords that are available to perform operation on the web element, and I have included all those in this particular file. So let's try to execute and see how the results are. Okay, so you can see that it will launch google.com. So it will open Chrome browser, open google.com, maximize the page, and then it will type in the text, right? Cleared the text. It will, so it went pretty quick. So let's analyze the report. Okay, so let me open the report here and go to the report. We'll analyze all these keywords. So you can see that here open browser is the keyword. So in this particular report in robot framework, you can get a lot of detail. So the first keyword that we used was get element attribute, right? So element attribute that I was looking for was class, and it returned that attribute and stored in this particular variable that we defined. So this is the class attribute. Let's see the attribute for the this particular web element. So this was basically I think this was the search, or it was the Google search button. Let's see. So yes, so you can see that the class attribute is G capital N089B, right? So that's what it has returned here, and it has stored in the right. So that you can see that this is the attribute, class attribute, which you have got, and it is stored in this attribute variable. Then get element count, you can see that there is just one web element, right? So it has returned the count of that particular web element that is matching this locator. Okay, get element size will return the size. So this is the size of this search button. Okay, that has been returned in width and height. Get web element will return the first web element that matches this particular locator. So whatever locator here, I have specified the XPath for the Google search button, right, for this button, and there is only one Google search button on this page. So it has returned, or it has found that particular web element, and it has passed this particular test. Then get web elements, you can see that it has returned the object. So there is a list variable that I have used, web element, and it has returned the object of the web element that matches this particular locator. So you can see that it is the list that is returned. Capture element screenshot, so it will capture the screenshot of the web element. So this is the text box, or the Google search text box. This text box is what it has been written. So if I just inspect, and if I can copy the X path, you can see this highlighted. This is the text box, and that's what it has been captured here, right? So this rectangle, this is the screenshot of this particular web element. Then assign ID. So this is the ID that has been assigned to this particular web element, and then I have used page should contain element this particular ID, and whatever ID has been specified to this particular web element, it has verified that yes, page contains this particular web element. So that's another important keyword that you can use. Then element should be focused, so it verifies whether this particular Google search box is focused when the page is launched. So it is focused, and then it is also visible. After that, it has typed in the text, and then I have used clear element text to clear whatever has been typed, and then I have used cover element to cover this button, I'm feeling lucky, with a blue div, which has been done as well. And then I'm verifying the element attribute value, right? So I'm just saying verify that element attribute value should be, then specifying the locator and the value, right? So I'm just saying that this particular button, the value should be Google search. Okay, so this particular Google search, if you inspect, I'm just saying that this particular locator should have the value as Google search. So you can see it has the value as Google search, and that's what I'm verifying here. So element attribute value should be. Then element should be enabled, should not be visible. Very simple, self-explanatory, that you are verifying that the element is enabled or not, or it should not be visible. The element should contain, right? So whatever you are verifying, whatever text you want to verify for that particular web element. So this is basically this web element here. So how search works, okay? And what I'm verifying is that this particular element should contain house search, and it should not contain Google search, right? So it doesn't contain Google search, it contains house search. So partially it has matched house search, so that's why it has passed. Now a text should be, so element text how search works is it matches that, right? And then text should not be how search. So if I go here, you can see that how search works is the actual full text, right? And here in this element text should not be, I'm specifying this partial text, right? So element text should be and should not be. So element text should be matches the exact text that is available in that particular web element. If it doesn't find, then it will fail. So here I'm verifying that element is not containing the text should not be how search, and that passes because the element text is actually how search works, right? If I specify here element text should not be how search works, then this step will fail because it will verify that it will be able to match how search works with the actual text here, okay? And then double click element is basically it will double click on the web element with the locator that you provide, and click element at coordinates will be, if you want to specify the coordinates for the particular at which the mouse should click, then it will click on that particular coordinate of the web element, right? So these are high level, very important keywords that are available in the Selenium library, right? That you can utilize in your web UI automation, and really, really helpful It has been a bit long tutorial, but these are the very important keywords that you will be utilizing in the web automation using robot framework. So hope you like the tutorial. Thank you very much for watching.